Welcome to US Briefing. The content of the briefing includes a kind of primal scream. Argentina's Javier Milei joins Trump and Bolsonaro in populist ranks. How geopolitics caught up with Canada. Digital currencies, why the US could be the biggest loser. Chinese travel firms prepare for return of foreign tourists as outlook improves. Scientists are racing to protect grass from climate change. A kind of primal scream. Argentina's Javier Milei joins Trump and Bolsonaro in populist ranks. Financial Times. Javier Milei, a radical libertarian, has been elected as president of Argentina and has been compared to former U.S. President Donald Trump and former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro. Milei's campaign, which was largely fought on social media, borrowed heavily from the Trump and Bolsonaro scripts, promising to do away with Argentina's political caste and shrink the state as far as possible. However, there are key differences between Milei and the two former leaders. Milei's ideas on economic policy are closer to those of former U.S. President Ronald Reagan. He has promised to cut public spending by up to 15% of GDP, in contrast to Trump's big deficits and increase in the U.S. national debt. Milei's political ideas are still evolving and demonstrate contradictions, such as his opposition to abortion clashing with his libertarian instinct that the state has no role in citizens' personal lives. Milei faces a steep challenge as president, as he lacks the institutional support that Bolsonaro and Trump enjoyed and has a narrow legislative base. He also faces a severe economic crisis in Argentina. How geopolitics caught up with Canada. Financial Times. Canada's long-held view of itself as a fireproof house is being challenged as the country finds itself entangled in foreign policy dilemmas with India and China. Canada has accused China of interfering in its domestic politics and criticized the Chinese military for flying dangerously close to its aircraft. It has also accused India of being involved in the fatal shooting of a Canadian Sikh. The country is grappling with how to conduct a foreign policy that aligns with its political identity while authoritarian governments gain influence and economic power shifts to Asia. The changing global landscape has led Canada to rely on two principles: defending its sovereignty and employing pragmatic diplomacy to engage with nations with different perspectives to prevent conflicts. Canada is increasing its presence in the Indo-Pacific and boosting its diplomatic and military presence in the region. It is also considering engagement with China and India to stabilize relations. While Canada is taking a firm stance against China's actions, it is also mindful of the need for constructive dialogue. However, the opposition Conservative Party is pressuring Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to be tough on China, which may limit his ability to engage in dialogue. Digital currencies, why the US could be the biggest loser. South China Morning Post. The emergence of central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, threatens to create currency blocks and further fragment global trade and investment, according to an article in the South China Morning Post. The trend is being driven by central banks' fear that cryptocurrencies will fill a perceived need for money independent of national governments. The article raises the question of who will bail out CBDCs if things go wrong. Furthermore, the fragmentation of CBDCs would add friction and inefficiency to global payment systems, imposing costs on businesses and consumers. Chinese travel firms prepare for return of foreign tourists as outlook improves. South China Morning Post. Chinese travel agencies are stepping up marketing efforts to attract overseas tourists to China, taking advantage of the warming relationship between the US and China following a recent meeting between the two countries' presidents. Trip.com Group, China's largest online travel firm, has pledged to invest in areas such as marketing and technology over the next 3 years to bolster its inbound travel business. The recovery of inbound tourism will help strengthen China's fragile economy, which has suffered from the COVID-19 pandemic and worsening relations with Western countries. Scientists are racing to protect grass from climate change. Wall Street Journal. Scientists in New Zealand are developing new varieties of pasture plants to help protect the global food supply from the threat of climate change. The researchers hope to develop plants that can tolerate high temperatures, less rain, and more variability in weather that is expected from climate change. The aim of the project is to prevent the grass and other plants that livestock eat from wilting in extreme heat and drought. The research is not without its challenges. A plant variety that works well in one area may not be suitable a few miles away. The project is particularly important for New Zealand, the world's largest dairy exporter and one of the biggest sellers of meat to the US, as the country has already experienced its warmest year on record. Less grass growing in pastures could mean that farmers either have to spend more on buying feed for their herds or reduce the number of animals on their farms. This could lead to more expensive food for consumers. South Korea, China, Japan top diplomats seek to boost trilateral cooperation. Yahoo! The foreign ministers of South Korea, China, and Japan met on Sunday to restart cooperation and pave the way for a trilateral summit. The three countries had agreed to hold summits every year starting in 2008, but the plan has been blocked by bilateral rows and the pandemic. The meeting follows a recent summit between Presidents Xi Jinping and Joe Biden and comes amid fears in Beijing that the U.S. is strengthening its regional ties to Japan and South Korea. The foreign ministers are gathering in the port city of Busan, in what is their first such meeting since 2019. Hmong New Year recalls ancestral spirits while keeping traditions alive in U.S. South China Morning Post. Hmong Americans are trying to preserve their ancestral spiritual customs as they fear they are being lost to younger generations. The Hmong people are ethnic minorities who fled persecution in China to Vietnam, Laos and Cambodia, where they fought for the U.S. in the Vietnam War. After the communist takeover, they moved to refugee camps in Thailand and then to the U.S. Most of the 300,000 Hmong people in America are animists, believing that spirits inhabit the physical world. However, younger generations are not being taught the spiritual significance of cultural traditions. The Hmong Cultural Center in St. Paul aims to educate young Hmong people about their ancestral culture, but around a third of young Hmong have converted to Christianity. Part of the Hmong tradition is the ritual slaughter of animals, which is carried out at a hog butcher shop in St. Paul. However, the younger generation is becoming less accustomed to the traditional rituals. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.